The sun hung low over the quiet town of Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the empty streets. It was a typical Tuesday evening, with most people settling into their routines, cooking dinner, watching TV, or chatting with neighbors. But then, something extraordinary happened. A loud rumble shook the ground, startling everyone. Dogs barked wildly, and birds scattered from the trees. In the distance, a bright light appeared in the sky, growing larger and brighter by the second. People stepped out of their homes to see what was going on. The light was unlike anything they had ever seen, pulsating with colors that shifted between blue, green, and gold. It moved slowly but purposefully, descending toward an open field just outside town. Sheriff Jake Miller was finishing up some paperwork at the station when he heard the commotion. He grabbed his hat and radio and headed outside. As soon as he saw the glowing object in the sky, his heart raced. "What in the world is that?" he muttered under his breath. Without wasting time, he jumped into his patrol car and sped toward the field. By the time Jake arrived, a small crowd had already gathered. Some people were pointing at the sky, while others snapped photos with their phones. The object, a massive spacecraft, hovered silently above the ground before gently touching down. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the fading sunlight. No one spoke. The air was thick with tension and awe. Jake pushed through the crowd, trying to keep everyone calm. "Stay back," he said firmly. "We don't know what this thing is yet." His voice carried authority, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his eyes. As they watched, a section of the ship slid open, revealing a group of tall, insect-like creatures. Their bodies were covered in a shiny exoskeleton, and their elongated limbs moved with precision. Large, multifaceted eyes scanned the crowd, and though they didn't speak aloud, a strange sensation filled everyone's minds as if thoughts were being transmitted directly into their brains. "They're talking to us," whispered Laura Bennett, who had arrived moments earlier. She was a biologist from the nearby research center and had always been fascinated by the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Now, standing face to face with actual aliens, she felt both terrified and exhilarated. The message came through clearly: "You must stop. Your actions are destroying your world. If you continue, there will be no future for you." The crowd gasped. Some people laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of prank. Others looked around, unsure how to react. Jake stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady, despite the knot in his stomach. "And why are you here?" The aliens tilted their heads, as if studying him. Then, without another word, they turned and re-entered their ship. The hatch closed, and, within seconds, the craft lifted off the ground, ascending rapidly until it disappeared into the clouds. For a moment, no one moved. The silence was deafening. Finally, someone spoke. "Did that really just happen?" Jake let out a deep sigh. He glanced at Laura, who looked pale but determined. "I think we've got a lot to figure out," he said quietly. Little did they know, this encounter would change everything for better or worse. By morning, news of the alien visit had spread like wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with videos and photos of the strange craft, while TV stations interrupted regular programming to cover the event. In living rooms, offices, and coffee shops across the country, people debated what they had seen or thought they had seen. Was it real, a hoax, or something else entirely? In Washington, D.C., government officials scrambled to respond. Senator Patricia Monroe called an emergency meeting, her sharp tone cutting through the chaos. "We need answers," she demanded, glaring at the room full of advisors. "What do we know about these creatures?" The truth was, no one knew much. The military claimed they had detected nothing unusual before the ship appeared, and scientists were still analyzing fragments of data collected during the encounter. But one thing was clear: the aliens' warning had struck a nerve. Meanwhile, Jake Miller found himself bombarded with questions from reporters and curious locals alike. He did his best to stay calm, repeating the same story over and over again. They came, they gave us a message, and then they left, he said, shrugging as if it were no big deal. Inside, though, he couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental had occurred. Laura Bennett spent the night poring over notes and recordings from the field. She replayed the aliens' words in her mind, trying to make sense of them. Their message had been simple, yet chilling. Humanity was on a path to destruction. But how, and why would anyone believe them? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Standing outside was Daniel Carter, a journalist known for his skeptical take on anything remotely outlandish. His disheveled appearance matched his reputation and tucked shirt, messy hair, and a notepad always in hand. "You're Laura Bennett, right?" he asked, flashing a quick smile. "I'd love to get your thoughts on all this." Laura hesitated, but eventually invited him in. Over coffee, she explained what she had observed, careful not to sound too eager or emotional. Daniel listened, intently, jotting down notes. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Interesting," he said slowly. "But you have to admit, this sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie." Laura frowned. "It may sound unbelievable, but I was there. I saw them. They weren't lying." Daniel chuckled. "Maybe, or maybe someone's pulling off the greatest prank in history." He thanked her for her time and left, already drafting an article in his head. The next day, his piece went viral, titled "Aliens Among Usor, Just Another Hoax." It mocked the entire incident, suggesting the so-called visitors were nothing more than elaborate special effects designed to distract people from real-world problems like climate change and political corruption. Readers ate it up, sharing memes and jokes online. Back in Willow Creek, Jake noticed a shift in the town's mood. At first, everyone had been curious, even excited. Now, skepticism reigned. "You really think those bug things are gonna save us?" one resident joked at the diner. "From what? Ourselves?" Jake didn't respond. He wasn't sure what to believe anymore. All he knew was that the aliens' words kept echoing in his mind. "If you continue, there will be no future for you." Laura, however, refused to give up. Determined to prove the aliens' message was genuine, she reached out to Ethan Cole, a linguist who specialized in decoding ancient languages. Though soft-spoken and reserved, Ethan had a brilliant mind. When Laura explained the situation, he agreed to help. Together, they began analyzing the faint traces of communication left behind by the aliens. It wasn't easy. Their language was unlike anything they'd ever encountered, but after hours of work, they started noticing patterns. Certain phrases repeated themselves, almost like warnings. One phrase stood out: "Time runs short." Ethan glanced at Laura, his expression grim. "Whatever they're trying to tell us, it's urgent." As days turned into weeks, life seemed to return to normal. The initial excitement faded, replaced by doubt and indifference. World leaders dismissed the aliens' warning as nonsense, focusing instead on other issues. Yet deep down, Laura couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something bigger was coming, something far worse than anyone imagined. Laura and Ethan worked tirelessly in a small, cluttered office at the research center. Papers covered every surface, and the glow of computer screens lit up their tired faces. They had been analyzing the data from the alien encounter for days, piecing together fragments of the strange language left behind. Though progress was slow, they were starting to uncover something unsettling. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the window, Ethan leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. "This isn't just a warning," he said quietly. "It's a plea for help." Laura looked up from her notes, her brow furrowed. "Help? You think they came here because they need us?" Ethan nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe they've tried this before with other species and failed." He pointed to a series of symbols on the screen. "These patterns repeat throughout history. ancient texts, cave paintings, even old myths. They all mention visitors bringing messages of doom. Laura's eyes widened. You're saying this has happened before? On Earth? Not just here? Ethan replied. Everywhere? The Kalersuming. That's what they call themselves. They travel the galaxy, trying to warn civilizations about their destructive paths. But no one listens. Not until it's too late. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the computers. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. If Ethan was right, then humanity wasn't unique. The aliens weren't invaders or conquerors, they were messengers. Desperate to stop the cycle of destruction, as they continued their work, both began experiencing strange dreams. Vivid, haunting images filled their mind cities, swallowed by fire, oceans drying up, skies choked with smoke. In each dream, the same phrase echoed, there is still time. Laura woke in a cold sweat one night, heart pounding. She called Ethan immediately, her voice trembling. Did you dream it too? She asked. Yes, he admitted after a pause. I don't know what it means, but it feels real, like they're trying to show us something. The next morning, they decided to share their findings with Jake, sitting in his office at the sheriff's station. Jake listened intently as Laura explained the patterns and the dreams. At first he seemed skeptical, leaning back in his chair, with crossed arms, but when Laura mentioned the recurring phrase, his expression softened. You really believe this, don't you? He asked. I do, Laura said firmly, and I think we need to take it seriously. Whatever these aliens are trying to tell us, it's important. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. Even if I believe you, how do we convince everyone else? People have already moved on. To them, this is just some weird story. Laura hesitated. She knew he was right. Convincing the world wouldn't be easy, not when so many dismissed the aliens as a hoax. But giving up wasn't an option. Later that day, Jake accompanied Laura and Ethan to the field where the ship had landed. Hoping to find more clues, they combed the area carefully. The ground was scorched where the craft had touched down, and faint traces of energy lingered in the air. Ethan knelt beside a patch of dirt, brushing away debris. Beneath it lay a shard of metallic material, smooth, cool, and unlike anything earthly. This could be key, Ethan said, holding it up to the light. If we can analyze its composition, maybe we'll learn more about their technology or their intentions. As they packed up their equipment, Jake noticed something odd in the distance. A group of crows circled overhead, cawing loudly. Beyond them, the horizon shimmered slightly, as though heat waves distorted the view. He squinted, unsure if it was just his imagination. What is it? Laura asked, noticing his gaze. I'm not sure, Jake muttered, but I've got a bad feeling about this. That night, as Laura studied the shard under a microscope, she couldn't shake the sense that time was slipping away. Every moment spent doubting or debating meant less time to act. Yet convincing others to listen felt like an impossible task. Still, she clung to hope that somewhere, somehow, humanity would hear the message before it was too late. Weeks passed, and strange things began happening in Willow Creek. At first, they were small and easy to ignore: a garden wilting overnight, a cow found dead with no visible wounds, power flickering on and off in random parts of town. But as the incidents grew more frequent, people started to take notice. Jake Miller noticed it too. As sheriff, he was called to investigate several odd reports. One farmer claimed his entire crop had turned to dust in a single night. Another said his well water had turned black and smelled like sulfur. Each time Jake arrived at the scene, he found no clear explanation. The ground looked normal, the animals showed no signs of disease, and the equipment checked out fine. Yet, something was clearly wrong. Laura Bennett heard about the strange events and decided to visit Jake at the station. It's like the aliens' warning is coming true, she said, pacing back and forth in his office. The planet is back. Jake leaned against his desk, arms crossed. You think this is connected to them? How? I don't know for sure, Laura admitted. But it's too much of a coincidence. First, they warn us, and now we're seeing these changes. It's like Earth itself is trying to tell us something. Jake didn't respond right away. He wanted to dismiss her theory, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that she might be right. The town was on edge, and whispers of blame were spreading. Some residents accused neighboring towns of sabotage, while others pointed fingers at the government, claiming secret experiments were to blame. Meanwhile, tensions rose globally. News outlets reported similar phenomena worldwide: rivers drying up, sudden storms wiping out cities, and unexplained power outages affecting millions. Governments scrambled to respond, but their efforts only fueled suspicion. In Europe, protests erupted outside parliament buildings, with angry crowds demanding answers. In Asia, nations accused one another of using advanced weapons to destabilize regions. The world was fracturing, and fear spread faster than anyone could contain it. In Washington, D.C., Senator Patricia Monroe pushed for drastic action. We cannot sit idly by while our enemies exploit this chaos, she declared during a televised address. I propose increasing military funding to protect our skies and secure our borders against any potential extraterrestrial threat. Her words sparked outrage among some and agreement among others. Daniel Carter, the skeptical journalist, wrote another article, mocking Monroe's stance. Aliens? Really? He scoffed. This isn't a sci-fi movie, it's a distraction from real issues. Our leaders are using fear to control us. Despite the growing divide, Laura and Ethan continued their work. Using the shard they'd recovered, they discovered traces of an unknown energy signature embedded within its structure. Ethan ran tests late into the night, his eyes glued to the monitor. This isn't natural, he murmured. It's like a message encoded in the material itself. Laura joined him, peering over his shoulder. What does it say? I'm not sure yet, Ethan replied, but it's complex far beyond anything humans have created. If we can decode it, we might finally understand why they came. As they worked, Jake faced mounting pressure from federal agents who had arrived in Willow Creek, led by General Marcus Hale, a stern man with sharp features and colder eyes. The team questioned residents and confiscated evidence related to the alien encounter. When Jake confronted them, Hale made his intentions clear. This isn't your jurisdiction anymore, Sheriff. Step aside, or you'll regret it. Jake clenched his fists, but backed down for now. He knew picking a fight wouldn't help, especially when so many questions remained unanswered. Still, he couldn't shake the sense that the truth was slipping further away. That night, Laura met Jake at his house. She told him about the energy signature and their progress decoding it. We're close, she said, but we need more time. Jake nodded, looking out the window at the darkened streets. Somewhere out there, forces far greater than either of them were at play. He just hoped they weren't already too late. It was a cold, starless night when the aliens returned. This time, they didn't land in the quiet fields outside Willow Creek. Instead, their massive ship descended over the heart of New York City, hovering silently above the skyline. Millions of people watched from rooftops, streets, and windows as the craft illuminated the city with an otherworldly glow. The news spread instantly, and within minutes, the world was holding its breath. Jake Miller saw it on TV while sitting in his dimly lit living room. His phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages, but he ignored them, staring at the screen in disbelief. They're back, he muttered to himself. Laura Bennett and Ethan Cole were already en route to the city. They had been working non-stop to decode the shard's energy signature, and though they hadn't finished, they knew this could be their only chance to communicate directly with the aliens. Armed with laptops, notebooks, and the metallic fragment, they drove through deserted highways, their minds racing with questions. When they arrived, the scene was chaotic. Soldiers lined the streets, keeping crowds at bay, while helicopters circled overhead. Laura spotted Jake near the perimeter, looking tense but focused. "What's happening?" she asked as she approached. "They're projecting something," Jake replied, pointing toward the ship. A beam of light shot down from the craft, forming a massive holographic image above Times Square. It showed Earth, beautiful and vibrant at first, but then the scene shifted. Cities crumbled into ruins, oceans boiled away, and forests turned to ash. Billions of lives vanished in moments, leaving behind a barren wasteland. The crowd gasped, some people crying out in horror. Others refused to believe what they were seeing, shouting that it was fake or propaganda. But Laura felt her stomach twist. This wasn't just a warning anymore, it was proof. Ethan adjusted his glasses, his hands trembling slightly. "They're showing us our future," he whispered. "If we don't change, this is what's coming." As the projection ended, the aliens stepped out onto a platform extended from their ship. Their tall, insectoid forms shimmered under the lights, and their multifaceted eyes scanned the crowd below. Once again, their message came not as spoken words, but as thoughts transmitted directly into everyone's minds. "You have seen the truth," the voice echoed. "Your actions poison your world. Stop now, or face extinction." The reaction was immediate and divided. Some people dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by guilt and fear. Others shouted angrily, accusing the aliens of manipulation. Reporters scrambled to capture every detail, while politicians used the moment to push their agendas. Senator Patricia Monroe appeared on live TV, calling the display a threat. "These creatures are trying to intimidate us," she declared. "We cannot allow them to dictate our way of life." General Marcus Hale ordered his troops to prepare for potential conflict, treating the aliens as invaders rather than messengers. But Laura knew better. She pushed through the chaos, clutching the shard tightly in her hand. "We need to talk to them," she yelled at Jake. "If we can understand their language, maybe we can explain that not all humans are like this." Jake hesitated, torn between caution and desperation. Finally, he nodded. "All right, let's do it." With Ethan's help, Laura set up her equipment near the edge of the restricted zone. Using the shard's energy signature as a basis, they broadcast a simple message. "We hear you. Help us understand." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one of the aliens tilted its head, studying them. Slowly, it raised a limb, and a series of symbols appeared in the air before them. Ethan typed furiously, analyzing the patterns. "They're responding," he exclaimed. Laura's heart raced as she realized they were finally communicating. For the first time, there was hope not just for answers, but for a way forward. Yet even as the exchange began, she couldn't ignore the weight of everything they'd seen. The aliens weren't asking for much, just a chance. And humanity had already wasted so many.
Vengeance was gone, vaporized in the explosion it had caused. Through the communication channels, the 3 months after the Battle of Arcturus Prime, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the space station Unity, watching the most unusual fleet in galactic history assemble in Earth orbit. Human vessels with their sleek adaptive designs flew alongside Drakmari warships that sang with the voices of their crews. Former Imperial ships bore the colors of freed colonies, while Kepler, mining vessels had been converted into surprisingly effective support craft. Admiral Cross joined him at the viewport, looking older but more satisfied than Jake had ever seen him. "The final count is in. We have over 300 ships from 47 different species. Not bad for a revolution that started with one destroyed peace treaty." "Any word from the core systems?" "The Empire is in full retreat. After we destroyed their shipyard and killed Admiral Krexeth, rebellions broke out on 60 worlds. The Imperial Council is calling for negotiations." Jake smiled grimly. "Let them call. They'll negotiate from a position of weakness this time. The destruction of absolute power had shattered more than just metal and lives. It had broken the myth of imperial invincibility that had kept the galaxy in line for centuries. Species that had been afraid to even whisper complaints about imperial rule were now openly declaring independence. Commander Beth Allen approached, still wearing the black armband that marked her as one of Captain Rodriguez's surviving crew. She had taken command of the human fighter wings after Vengeance's sacrifice, and her pilots treated her with the reverence reserved for living legends. "Jake, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian home system. It's marked as an official diplomatic communication. Put it through to the main conference room. Time to see what they want." The conference room aboard Unity had been designed to accommodate beings from dozens of different species. Jake took his place at the head of the curved table, with Admiral Cross to his right and Captain Cothan to his left. Elena Vasquez represented the colonial resistance, while Trademaster Kef spoke for the Kepler Mining Consortium. The holographic image that appeared was not what Jake expected. Instead of a military commander or imperial diplomat, they faced an elderly Zephyrian with faded scales and tired eyes. "I am High Counselor Rathmore, first speaker of the Zephyrian Assembly. I come before you not as a conqueror, but as one who seeks to end a war that has brought nothing but suffering to both our peoples." Captain Cothan's scales darkened with suspicion. "Pretty words from the same council that ordered the murder of neutrals at Harmony Point." Battle Leader Cothan speaks truth, the High Counselor replied, surprising everyone by using the Drakmari's proper title. "The decision to attack Harmony Point was made by Admiral Krex and a faction of military extremists. They convinced the Council that humanity posed an immediate threat that required swift action." "And now?" Jake asked. "Now Admiral Krexith is dead, his faction discredited, and 60 worlds have declared independence from imperial rule. We face the complete collapse of the government that has maintained galactic peace for 8 centuries. Elena leaned forward. "Your definition of peace involved enslaving entire species and destroying any world that resisted." "Yes," the High Counselor said simply. "We convinced ourselves that order justified oppression, that stability was worth any price. The events of recent months have shown us the cost of that philosophy." Admiral Cross studied the Zephyrian carefully. "What exactly are you proposing, High Counselor?" "Complete withdrawal of Imperial forces from all contested systems. Recognition of the independence of any world that chooses to leave Imperial rule. And most importantly, the establishment of a new galactic government based on representation rather than domination." The conference room fell silent. Jake had expected demands for surrender or threats of retaliation. This was something entirely different. "In exchange for what?" he asked. "In exchange for guarantees that the core Zephyrian worlds will not be invaded or destroyed. My people are proud, but we are not stupid. Your alliance has proven it can defeat our military forces. We prefer negotiation to extinction." Trademaster Kef chittered softly. "The High Counselor fears that his people will face the same treatment they gave to others." "A reasonable fear," Captain Cothan added. "The Empire showed no mercy to those who opposed them." Jake stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the mixed fleet that had grown from the ashes of Harmony Point. Ships from dozens of worlds, united not by fear, but by a shared commitment to freedom. "High Counselor, I need to discuss this with my allies. But I will tell you this. Humanity didn't start this war to conquer the galaxy. We started it to prove that no single species has the right to rule over others. Then we may have common ground for discussion." After the transmission ended, the debate began immediately. Elena wanted guarantees that former Imperial colonies would receive reparations. Captain Cothan demanded that Zephyrian military forces be permanently reduced. Trademaster Kef insisted on strict oversight of Imperial resource extraction operations. "The question," Admiral Cross said finally, "is whether we can trust them to honor any agreement we make." "We couldn't trust their last agreement," Elena pointed out bitterly. "They broke a peace treaty and committed mass murder." Jake returned to his seat, his mind working through the possibilities. The High Counselor is right about one thing. If the Empire collapses completely, we'll have chaos across half the galaxy. Billions of beings depend on Imperial infrastructure for basic services. So we replace it, Commander Allen said. Build something better. With what authority? Who elected? Us to rule the galaxy? Captain Cothan's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. Human Morrison speaks wisdom. We fight for freedom, not conquest. If we impose our will on others, we become what we fought against. Over the following week, representatives from across the galaxy converged on Earth for the most significant political gathering in galactic history. The Arcturian Federation sent their greatest philosophers. The Centauri republics contributed legal scholars who had studied governmental systems for millennia. Even species that had remained neutral throughout. The war sent observers. The negotiations took place in the same building where humans had once signed their first interstellar treaties. But now, instead of humanity begging for recognition, they sat as equals among the galaxy's great powers. Jake found himself appointed as chairman of the Constitutional Convention, a role that terrified and honored him in equal measure. 6 months. Ago, he had been a simple diplomat trying to secure trading rights for his species. Now, he was helping to design a government for hundreds of worlds. The fundamental principle, he addressed the assembly, must be that no single species or alliance can dominate others. We've seen where that path leads. The Zephyrian delegation, led by High Counselor Rathmore himself, accepted limitations on their military that would have been unthinkable before Arcturus Prime. In exchange, they retained control of their core systems and received guarantees against invasion. The Drakmari demanded the right to maintain their warrior traditions, but agreed to restrictions on aggressive expansion. The Kepler Consortium won protections for worker rights that ended centuries of exploitation. Most importantly, the new Galactic Federation included enforcement mechanisms that prevented any single member from vetoing actions supported by the majority. The days of imperial intimidation were over. 2 years after Harmony Point, President Jake Morrison stood before the Federation Assembly on Earth and delivered his inaugural address. The transformation still seemed impossible, from diplomat to revolutionary to elected leader of a galactic government. We gather here today not as conquerors or subjects, but as free beings committed to a simple principle, that the right to determine one's own destiny belongs to every sentient species in the galaxy. In the audience, Admiral Cross wore the uniform of the Federation Defense Force, charged with protecting the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Commander Allen led the integrated fighter squadrons that included pilots from dozens of worlds. Elena Vasquez served as governor of the Liberated Colonies Council, ensuring that no world would ever again face imperial oppression. Captain Cothan commanded the Federation's Rapid Response Fleet, her Drakmari crews working alongside former enemies to maintain security across the trade routes. High Counselor Rathmore sat in the Zephyrian delegation, a reformed empire that had learned to lead through example rather than force. The empire that attacked Harmony Point claimed to maintain galactic peace through strength, Jake continued. Today we begin a new kind of peace, one based on justice, representation, and the understanding that true strength comes from protecting the weak rather than oppressing them. As he spoke, Jake's thoughts turned to Captain Rodriguez and the crew of Vengeance, whose sacrifice had made this moment possible. Their memorial stood in Earth's orbit, a reminder that freedom always required, the courage of those willing to fight for it. The galaxy that emerged from the war was not perfect. There were still conflicts between species, disputes over resources, and worlds that struggled with the transition to self-governance. But for the first time in centuries, those conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than conquest. The Zephyrian Empire still existed, but as The alien ship looked like a massive crystal floating in space. It was bigger than any human warship and sparkled with strange lights. The ship moved slowly toward the human space station called New Geneva. Inside the station, alarms were going. Off-Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his battleship, the USS Defiance. He was a tall man with gray hair and deep lines on his face from years of command. His ship floated near the station, ready for anything. Jake had fought in 3 wars against pirates and rebels. He had never seen anything like this alien ship. The crystal ship sent a message. A voice spoke in perfect English, but it sounded cold and empty. "We are the Galactic Council. We come to speak with your leaders. Prepare to receive our ambassador." Jake looked at his second in command, Captain Lisa Hayes. She was young but smart, with short brown hair and quick eyes. Lisa had studied every report about aliens that humans had ever found. Most of those reports were just stories. This was real. "What do you think, Lisa?" Jake asked. "They have been watching us for a long time," Lisa said. "They know our language. They know where to find us. This is not their first visit to human space." A small shuttle left the crystal ship. It was shaped like a diamond and moved without making any sound. The shuttle docked with New Geneva Station. Jake and Lisa went to meet whoever was inside. The airlock opened with a hiss. Out stepped something that looked like a walking piece of glass. It was tall and thin with no face that humans could see. Light moved through its body like water. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once. "I am Zix Thera of the Veltai. I speak for the Galactic Council. You will listen." Jake did not move. He had faced down pirates and terrorists. He would not be scared by a talking piece of glass. "I am Admiral Morrison. This is Captain Hayes. We are listening." The alien moved closer. Its body made tiny ringing sounds like breaking glass. "Your species has grown too fast. You spread across space like a disease. You build weapons. You take planets that do not belong to you. This must stop." Lisa stepped forward. "Those planets were empty when we found them. We hurt no one." "You lie," the alien said. 3 worlds you have taken were marked for other species. You build war machines in space where peace should rule. The Council has watched you for 50 of your years. We have seen enough." Jake felt his anger rising. No alien was going to tell humans what they could or could not do. "What do you want?" Zixathera raised one arm. A screen of light appeared in the air. Pictures moved across it, showing space battles and burning planets. "This is what happens to species that do not listen to the Council. They fight us. They lose. Their worlds burn. Their people become slaves or die." The pictures changed. Now they showed peaceful planets with cities made of crystal and metal. Alien beings walked in gardens under purple skies. "This is what happens to species that are wise. They join the Council. They follow our laws. They live in peace." "What laws?" Lisa asked. The alien turned to face her. "You will stop building new colonies beyond your home system. You will give up your weapons of war. You will let the Council guide your science and technology. You will send your leaders to learn proper behavior. In return, we will protect you from enemies. We will trade with you. We will share some of our knowledge." Jake laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You want us to give up everything that makes us human. You want us to be your pets." "You will be junior members of the Council," Zixthara said. "In time, perhaps your species will earn more rights, if you prove worthy." Lisa looked at the screen again. The pictures of burning worlds came back. She counted 12 different alien species being destroyed by Council ships. "How many species have joined the Council willingly?" "All species join willingly," the alien said. "Once they understand the choice." "That is not an answer," Jake said. The alien's body flashed brighter. "Your answer must come quickly. The Council is not patient with primitive species. You have 7 of your days to decide. Accept our offer or face the consequences. Jake looked at Lisa. She gave him a small nod. They both knew what their answer would be. Humans had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had survived ice ages and plagues and asteroid strikes. They had never given up when things got hard. They would not start now. We do not need 7 days, Jake said. We can give you our answer right now. The alien waited. Jake stood straighter. His voice was calm and clear. We respectfully decline. The silence stretched on for long seconds. The alien's body dimmed, then flashed bright again. You refuse? That is correct, Jake said. This has never happened before, Zixthera said. No species has ever refused the Council's generous offer. Then you have learned something new today, Lisa said. The alien moved toward the airlock. You have made a grave mistake. The Council will not forget this insult. We will return with a larger fleet. You will have one more chance to save your species. We will be waiting, Jake said. The alien left. Its shuttle flew back to the crystal ship. Within minutes, the ship turned and jumped away, disappearing in a flash of light. Jake and Lisa stood alone in the docking bay. Around them, the station crew was already getting back to work. News of the alien visit would spread across human space within hours. Every colony, every ship, every outpost would know that Earth had said no to the Galactic Council. Do you think we did the right thing? Lisa asked. Jake smiled for the first time that day. Lisa, my grandfather fought in World War II. My father fought in the Mars Rebellion. I fought pirates in the Outer Rim. We do not bow to bullies. We never have. We never will. As the USS Defiance prepared to leave New Geneva, Jake sent a message to Earth Command. It was short and simple. First contact with hostile aliens complete. They demanded surrender. We said no, prepare for war.